What's up, party people? My name is Sunny Ray. This is the Sunny Ray Show. Second interview for the day. We just had an awesome one with Eddie Trivia. My next guest, her name is Laura Patterson. She's an entrepreneur, speaker, and author, and president of VisionEdge Marketing. She's also a board member for several organizations, globally recognized expert in customer-centric growth and marketing performance management, and a leading voice in replacing random acts with customer-centric strategies that deliver measurable, smarter growth. How you doing, Laura?
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Sunny.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Yeah, it's marketing is just like one of those things, no? Especially for like I find I deal with a lot of technical founders, and it's such an enigma. It feels like I don't know, a bit of a black box. So I'm interested to, take this like customer centric approach towards marketing. But where are you calling in from today?
Austin, Texas.
Nice, nice. Okay, so Laura, what does Vision Edge do? What is Vision Edge marketing? And yeah, why should the listener care?
Okay. Well, so we founded this company, and I've been at the helm of it since 1999. And when we started out, we are a result of people coming to us and saying, "Can you help us do a better job at positioning and messaging? Can you help us do a better job of identifying our best customers, or identifying new markets, or identifying ways to enter a new market? Can you help us do?" There were lots of help us do. And that's how Vision Edge Marketing got started, by people asking us at the team that I eventually put together to do things that required the ability to make better growth decisions, but using data, and then to be able to execute on those decisions with efficient processes and measure the results. So we work with mid-market and larger B2B companies to accelerate their growth based on data-driven decisions and process and performance management.
Fascinating. So just to kind of slow it down a bit, Laura, I was reading about your background. So you spent years at Motorola across marketing operations, product marketing, and customer loyalty, before founding Vision Edge in 1999. So what did you see moving through those kind of like different seats that convinced you measurement, not execution, was kind of like the missing piece?
So I've been around the block a few times, Sunny, and I started my career actually in financial services in a company that you may have heard of, State Farm. And from there, and did some other work in the healthcare and insurance industries, and ended up in a technology startup. This will date me, which was we had a application for the durable medical equipment industry that ran on a Wang 2200. So if people out there know what a Wang is, now you know sort of my era and my generation. So that was really early on technology, and that is what allowed me eventually to be recruited by Motorola, who was looking for people with technology startup experience and in a background in sales, marketing, and customer service. So customer centricity has really been a key part of my career all those years. And after Motorola, I had the privilege to create a customer loyalty product for a financial services organization that led to leading a software company's repositioning, and then ultimately to Vision Edge Marketing. So a common thread for me and for the people that have been part of Vision Edge Marketing is an idea that of customer centricity, that if you create customer value, you will create enterprise value. That's basically a guiding principle of our firm.
I love that. That really resonates. So what was the actual moment you decided to leave Motorola and start Vision Edge? Like, was there a specific project or conversation that tipped it, or was it more of a slow build?
Well, I didn't initially go straight from leaving Motorola to Vision Edge Marketing. I actually had some time in between with this software company for a couple of years, and with this
Got it.
financial services company project. Leaving Motorola really had a lot to do with the fact that I was in an amazing role and had the most remarkable ride, which really was a terrific company. It's really sad to see where it is today, because it really is an entity like what I was part of doesn't exist any longer. And part of my job was to work directly with a lot of our primary and very important customers. And in working with those customers and helping them be successful, I could see that we had some challenges.
Mia, can you close the door? Oh, sorry, Laura. I was just asking my daughter. Can you close the door here, sweetie? Sorry, Laura. I thought I was
No
muted.
worries.
Keep going.
Anyway, the bottom line being, I recognized that there were some challenges, and when the opportunity came for something different, I took that opportunity, and it's been great because it allowed me to really think deeply about customer centricity, about customer acquisition, about customer retention, about creating customer loyalty, about developing and what it means to have moments of truth in the customer experience. And so that allowed me to do all of that, and it set me up very well to be at the helm of VisionEdge Marketing.
That's super interesting. Laura, you've also, you've talked about companies being stuck in what you call random acts of marketing. When did you first notice that pattern, and what does it actually look like inside of a company that's kind of living it?
It's not just random acts of marketing. Companies have random acts everywhere. Random acts of selling. I'll give you some examples in a moment. Random acts of process, random acts of customer service. Random acts run rampant inside many organizations, and they often cost organizations a $500,000 or more dollars a year. It's a big amount of money. Plus, it stalls growth. So let me give you a couple of examples. So let's say I have this colleague who runs a company, and he had an opportunity through the Chamber of Commerce to underwrite an event. And he was very excited about this opportunity to underwrite an event. Now, his company doesn't really do any work in the community that he is in. That's not where his customers are. But we were having a conversation, and he was so excited. He had come back after that meeting to tell his salespeople and his marketing people all about this event opportunity, which was going to occur in about less than 90 days. So there was going to be a tremendous amount of work. And they weren't very excited about this event. And so he said, I'm kind of confused. It seemed like a really good opportunity. And I said, seems to me like a random act. Let's talk about it, right? Because how does this tie in to the outcomes you and your team are trying to achieve by the end of the year? How does this help you move the ball down the field for the things that are important to your company and to your customers? Given everything that your people already have on their plates with the end of the year targets and the end of the quarter targets and planning for the coming year, where does this fit into their ability to succeed for you and the ability for your company to be successful? And as we walked through that conversation, it became pretty evident that this event was going to become a random act. It really didn't connect back to anything the company was planning to do or had committed to doing or in any service to a customer. So eventually he pulled out of that event and graciously and said, let's do it when it makes more sense for all of us. And I can do it inside a plan where that event connects to what it is we need to accomplish. So that's just an example. And CEOs do that all the time. I don't know about your background, Sunny, but maybe you had some experiences where people will just pop in and say, let's go do this, right? And it may not be very clear to you where that fits in what the company is trying to achieve. It may actually have something to do with what the company is trying to achieve, but it might not. And salespeople are notorious for random acts, right? They come back after trying to close a deal, and they tell people, here's what I negotiated with this customer. And 2 or 3 of the things that they negotiated for the customer aren't even things that the company is delivering right now. So those are creating random acts, right? Random acts of selling. So those are some examples. Maybe some of the people listening can relate to that. And I can be happy to share many other examples.
No, definitely. I mean, guilty as charged. So, building a growth strategy firm in 1999 meant selling companies on an idea, right? Like measurement discipline that I guess a lot of marketing departments weren't even asking for yet. How did you convince those early clients to buy in?
Oh, great question. So let's wind the clock back just a little bit. I read this article in 1999 that was written by Christine Moorman, who was at Duke, and it was on marketing performance accountability. And it really resonated with me because I had come out of a company, Motorola, where accountability was a very big deal. And we reported regularly on what we were doing. So in my career at Motorola, one of the opportunities I had was to present at what we called an operations review. And people have probably heard me tell this story a million times. And when I got a new boss and I went to his operations review and I had presented what we were doing in marketing. And a couple months later, after doing this presentation for him over several months, I was invited to when he presents to his leadership team. And nothing that I had shared with him about marketing, which was a huge part of the organization and what I was actually spending, my 60 hours a week doing, was included in his presentation. So later that day, as he was whipping around the corner and stopped into my office, I said to Gary, thank you so much for letting me come to today's presentation. I really appreciated the opportunity to be included. I was just noticing that none of the information that I'd given you about marketing was included in the presentation. What can I give you that would be more helpful? And the very first thing he said to me after I asked that question was, what is your job? And I was stunned because I wasn't really sure what was happening. I thought, well, maybe I'm about to get fired, right? And he was very gracious. He just jumped right in and said, your job. Says, I don't expect you to sell because you're in marketing, but I expect you to enable our organization to be successful. Here are things I do expect. I expect to know how many ROMCOs have gone out from marketing. I expect to know how many emulation boards have gone out as a result of marketing. I expect to know how many simulation boards have gone out as a result of marketing. I expect to know how many application notes had been requested as a result of marketing. He gave me a list of things he wanted to know. And he wanted to know how that was tied back to what we were achieving in sales and what I was spending on behalf of the organization. And I looked at him and said, I can do that. I really didn't have a clue how to do that, Sonny. But I had a colleague in finance, and all the data at that time was, my computer just had a blank screen and a blinking green light. So I didn't have a lot of information that was easy to get access to, but finance had it. So I went over to my finance guy and I said, Enrique, how could we create some data and some information that would tell Gary what we're doing, how well it's working, what we should keep doing, and how much it's costing. And we put something together. And that was the beginning of really understanding how to make marketing accountable. I know that's kind of a long answer, but that became the roots of everything we do in VisionEdge Marketing is what are the business outcomes? So I say this to every CMO, every chief growth officer that we have ever worked with, every CEO, every COO. What are the outcomes in very measurable customer-centric terms that your company needs to achieve? And then for each of the functions in that organization, they should be able to know what is it that you expect this organization, this part of the organization to do to help achieve that? And how will you know we did? And if you can answer those three questions, you can begin to set up measurements. So all KPIs in the company, key performance indicators, should be tied to what the outcomes are. So maybe it's increasing share of wallet, for example, in a particular customer segment. Maybe it's increasing product adoption in a particular customer segment. Maybe it's increasing footprint expansion in a particular customer segment, whatever those KPIs are. So what is sales? What is marketing? What is product? What is service supposed to do? So that's how it trickles down. And that's how we ended up getting known in the marketing performance management space, because we started doing a lot of research and a lot of work and helping a lot of companies get that right. And so thanks for asking, and thanks for letting me tell a long story.
Oh, that's great. And Laura, what did the earliest version of VisionEdge's methodology look like compared to what it is today?
Well, we actually started and announced pretty early out of the gate what we call the Smart Start Services Suite. And it was basically already frameworks on setting up how we can do market customer research, competitive intelligence, which was done inside what we called a quick start. And then how do you take that, convert that into something that's a go-to-market plan or a strategic plan or a marketing plan or a sales plan And then what is the positioning and messaging around that? And that takes you into Market Smart and actually implementation. So we did that right out of the gate for our customers and came up with frameworks out of the gate. And from that, eventually, I have a patent for a software as a service product called Excellence, which is basically the ability for companies to create these customer-centric, measurable plans that will then help you look at how you've allocated your outcomes financially. So when the CFO comes and says, let's talk about some of the changes we can make to the budget, whether up or down, you can actually look and see where your money is going by outcome as opposed to a sub-account, right? It helps you set up the beginnings of your dashboard, and it helps you begin to calendarize your activities. So that's another example how we went forward. And then the circle of traction also evolved out of that. So each as we grew and evolved and got even more expertise, we expanded into other frameworks. So the circle of traction, which was included in my fourth book, Fast Track Your Business, really talks about the process and steps you need to take in order to achieve customer-centric growth and grow faster.
Wow. And Laura, after what, 25 plus years and what, 300 plus companies, is there one belief about growth you had on day one that turned out to be completely wrong?
That was wrong. Yeah, I think I could say that there was something. I think that we thought that there was a lot of challenges around execution, I think early on. And what we kind of came to the conclusion that it's not about executing faster. It's not even about hiring better people. It's not even about better using technology. I think a lot of companies, especially with the advent of AI, and before that with cloud, and before that with mobile, and before with all the technology, I think that really companies are pretty efficient and they are pretty smart. The challenge is around alignment. I think that's where we didn't understand how misaligned many organizations are, and they're not aligned around customer value at the start. So that fixing that alignment and strategic clarity is kind of where we ended up moving more toward, as opposed to doing things better, faster, smarter.
Got it. Cool. So there's what, like I think a Bain finding that you cite, right? Where 80% of companies believe they deliver a superior customer experience, but only I think something like 8%, right? Less than 10% of their customers actually agree. When did that gap stop being, a statistic to you and start being something that you saw firsthand in client after client?
Oh, I think I think we all have experience in working as consumers with organizations, and the company probably thinks that they're delivering a far better experience than what we may be actually experiencing ourselves. So it happens in companies all of the time. And it's going to be interesting to watch things play out as more and more companies move to AI agents and non-human entities to serve customers in any capacity. For me personally, I want to talk to a human when I have a problem. Otherwise, I don't need to call you or reach out to you. I can just go on to Google and do a search or do an AI prompt or whatever. So when I'm calling you, I really want to talk to somebody. And I want to talk to somebody who is going to have a conversation with me that is helpful. So I always find it, frustrating when they have the scripts and they have to get through their scripts before I can tell them why I'm calling. For me, I don't know about other people, but for me, time is the most precious thing I have. There is just nothing more precious to me than time. So long hold wait times and having to wait for someone to get through their script, having to get passed from one person to the next, these are things that I personally find frustrating. So let me give you I'll give you a personal example. I don't want to pick on any particular company, and I certainly won't want to divulge anything from a customer's perspective. But not that long ago, so when we started the company, we got a credit card. A lot of people do. We got a credit card through Capital One. Do you have Capital One up there? Okay. Well, it's Capital One. And anyway, got a credit card through Capital One. And over many, many years, many conversations, great account with them, great relationship with them. We've always paid all of our credit cards on time and in full. We have a great relationship. And I get a letter from Capital One informing me that they are going to arbitrarily change our credit limit. And I have no idea why. There's no explanation. It's just, we're changing your credit limit, and then we're reducing it. And so I called up customer service at Capital One, told them who I was and that I was concerned and I didn't really want to lose the credit limit. What could I do? And why did it happen? What did I do wrong? How do I fix it? And the answer I got from that person was, it's not fixable. Okay, that was the answer. So I said, what do you mean it's not fixable? And the woman was very nice, but she said, it's a done deal. It's not fixable. I said, well, can I speak to a next level up? And it took forever for her to agree to let me talk to somebody. She was afraid to let me talk to somebody because it might look badly for her, right? So I eventually get to speak to someone who confirms that there is absolutely nothing that I can do to get the credit limit back up. After decades, over 2 decades of working with this company, I said, well, how do I appeal it? And they said, well, you can send a fax or a letter, not an email, a fax. Who has a fax machine, Sunny? Who has a fax machine? Okay, all right. So I got off the phone. What do you think I did right there and then?
Leave? I don't know. What did you do?
I went online to look for other credit cards, just like anybody else would. And I found one that I thought was suitable for our company. I talked to our finance guy. We applied for an American Express and we got approved right away. And what do you think the credit limit was?
More?
Yes, exactly. And so bye-bye Capital One, hello American Express. That's an example of a moment of truth, right? So a moment of truth with that experience, I'm sure that the customer service people, they did everything they should do. They went by the script, they were nice, right? But from my perspective, it was not a good outcome and it was not a good experience. And the fact that this first level was so reluctant to let me speak to the next level, that was a deterrent, right? She was deterring me and creating friction in the conversation. So as a company as your company and in your community is listening to these, they can ask themselves, how would we have handled something like that? What kind of experience would we have created? So I'm about to do something similar. I think I mentioned to you that my phone died yesterday. I've had it a very long time and it has been worked very hard. And I purchased a new phone. Oh my gosh, it's been so long since I had a phone. I had no idea how expensive they had gotten. Anyway, I'm going to now consider whether I want a new phone service. And so I'm going to have a conversation with the company that I've been with since 1999 with the same phone service to find out what are they offering, because they keep raising their rates. And so that will be an interesting conversation probably later today with the phone company, giving them the opportunity to be competitive and create a better experience for a long established customer. Are those the kinds of examples that people on your community find helpful?
I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I find it helpful. I haven't talked to them right now, but
because I want to add value to the conversation here. I want to make sure they're walking away with something that will be helpful.
I know one thing that would be helpful is, I guess, like in the prep notes, right? This conversation, you said that the biggest barrier to growth isn't poor execution. It's pursuing the wrong opportunities well. I love that, right? So climbing the wrong tree or something like that. Can you walk through a company that was genuinely excellent at execution, but was kind of like aimed at the wrong target the whole time?
Oh, well, sure. And that can fall quickly into the random access selling. So let's talk a little bit about that. I don't know enough about your background, Sunny, but perhaps you are familiar with salespeople who will come in and say, I was talking to so-and-so, and I think they would be a great opportunity. And I think we should sit down with them and see what kind of a deal we can make. It's not a customer you've ever done work with before. It's not in a market you've ever done work before, right? But this person wants to close a deal. And in sales-centric companies, this is not uncommon, because in sales-centric companies, it's all about making the number, whether it's the number at the end of the month or the number at the end of the quarter, and they're going to do whatever they can to make a number. And so you might find yourself all of a sudden as a company working with various customers that may or may not be profitable for you, that do not give you opportunities to get into a larger, more customers in that market. It could be any number of things. It could derail you from focusing on opportunities where you could be more profitable, or you could expand your market share or grow your share of wallet with a customer. Because I don't know about you, but for me, I have yet to work with a customer who has unlimited resources. They have more money, more people, more anything than they know what to do with. It always seems that there are limitations. So if resources are sent, a product resource, a design resource, an architectural resource, an IT resource is sent off to work on this customer, and they end up not being profitable, that's an opportunity that was a lost opportunity to things that might have been more profitable or might have been a better customer. So that's an example. Making a product. Someone comes in and says, I have a really great idea of what we ought to be doing with this product. And they have great ideas. And they don't do any research. They don't do any customer research or market research to even find out whether or not people would adopt this new product or this new feature, right? So think about the amount of money and time that a company might make or take to put into that new product or new service or new enhancement or new feature without knowing whether or not it's going to have any traction in the marketplace. So that would be a random act of product development, right? So these are all examples of pursuing the wrong opportunities. There are many of them. I mean, we could fill up our whole conversation with slews of examples.
You also had a really interesting take, Laura, on like MPS and kind of these scorecards, right? So what experience broke your trust in kind of the old scorecards?
So I worry about the discipline of marketing, and we don't spend very much time any longer in that space because we spend so much more time at the C-suite level and in the strategy level, at the alignment level. But my roots are there, and so it's near and dear to me as a discipline. I worry because many B2B marketing organizations have been subjugated under sales to essentially create qualified opportunities for salespeople. So predominantly demand gen. There might be some organizations, they might be focusing on brand or authority, content, whatnot, but that's marketing in a very tactical way. That's very downstream. All of that is downstream marketing. And for companies to be successful, they have to have really good, what we would call upstream marketing. That's where you are making those very strategic decisions about customers and markets and segments and products and channels, all those upstream things that today are being done by other roles or functions. And so that worries me somewhat for the marketing discipline.
Laura, it's been fascinating. So I guess, help me land the plane with this one. If a CEO could fix exactly one disconnect in their business this year between strategy, execution, and measurement, which one would you tell them to fix first, and why?
I would tell them to make sure that they have very, very clear, specific, customer-centric, measurable business outcomes. And they have they have clearly communicated with each of their teams how that function is expected to help move the ball down the field and how they know they're going to do it. Because and then keeping them focused on that, the alignment around that. So strategic clarity and alignment. That would be where I would say, put your energy.
Awesome. Laura, so where do you have a podcast yourself, or where do people learn more about you? Do they go to LinkedIn and then maybe share the website as well? And then we can.
I would love to connect with them on LinkedIn. Yes, What's Your Edge is a podcast. We do have a YouTube, and mostly it's customers that are our guests, sharing their experiences. And you're welcome to come to visionedgemarketing.com. You can reach me at Laura P at visionedgemarketing.com, or check out my personal website at laurapatterson.co.
Awesome. Laura, hang out for 1 minute. I'm going to bring this stream to an end. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Sunny, for having me.